Hi everybody, my name is Ross, this is Mark, and you're listening to the A Life in Dublin podcast. No, but Shaun was so good because he had so much to talk about. He is so young and he's doing so much that it was just super rejuvenating to talk to.
The conversation with Shaun was quite inspirational, as you said, because he's going for his dream, but doing it in a way that's very reflective on himself, critical of himself, but in a positive way, in the sense that he's analysing every aspect of a stand-up comedy to make it better. Nobody's forcing him to do that other than him. And for a 22-year-old guy who started comedy at 17 and he's now starting to get accolades and recognition internationally as well, I think we're very lucky to have him on the show. I think in the future we'll be resharing this because he's going to be fucking famous.
This is where we make our money.
I hope you enjoy it.
Enjoy, guys.
Cheers.
I think I've heard of it actually.
So they were pretty good.
And,
He's like a magic man.
That was a loud click.
Disappear.
Off to play his PlayStation, right? So was I very good? No, probably not. I didn't give myself as much time as I did with the spoken word, but what was it that kind of drove you to get into any sort of comedy?
So mine was a bit different in that so I'd always been kind of interested in creative arts and creative work. So when I was 10, I used to play Pokemon a lot. So I'll draw my own Pokemon and stuff like that. And then when I'd gone to comic books, wrote my own comic books for a while. Then when I was 15, I moved to Nigeria. So what happened was, it was meant to be a 2-week holiday. Got there, straight to boarding school, stayed for 2 years instead of just I packed for 2 weeks as well. They just threw away the tickets, stayed there. Didn't have any, and when I was there, I had no creative opportunities at all. I couldn't pursue any drawings or comic books or anything. They don't really have any creative field there for anything. It's either you're a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer. So when I was there, I was if I ever come back to Ireland and I get into a creative field, I'm gonna go after it immediately, head down and work hard. And I got lucky when I was 17, came back to Ireland, did a bit of screenwriting, then kind of lost creative direction. Then in Nigeria we didn't have Netflix at the time, so I had just got Netflix back. And you ever just go on Netflix and go through Netflix and put things on your list that you're never gonna watch. So I was doing that for days, and then one day I opened Netflix and there's this big trailer. And it was Dave Chappelle. You guys know Dave Chappelle? Yeah, I didn't know him at the time. I didn't really follow stand-up, but I just saw 10 years he's making a comeback, the king of comedy. And I was this guy can't be that funny, exactly like that. I was nah, it can't be that funny. So I watched on. I think I wanted to watch 10 minutes because I thought I'd get bored. Watched the whole thing, and then literally from there I was I'm just going to start stand-up. I remember just walked to the kitchen being oh, Mom, I'm just going to do stand-up right now. And she was all right, baby, do whatever you want. And she literally was oh, all right. She did. But she probably just didn't even think I would do it. But I just got into it. Did my first gig when I was 17. Wow. Didn't go as well as I would have liked. And then I was it went well. It went bad enough that I realized this is an actual craft. You can't just stand up and say what you think is funny. You have to actually write and all that. So I spent 9 months. I was in 6th year, so I had to focus on the leaving cert. But I'd also focus on I'd do a lot of research on how to get better at writing jokes. And then I did the second gig at the Halfpenny actually, and ever since then it's been going well. Been doing pretty well since then.
And where was your first gig?
The first gig I did, so since I was 17, they wouldn't let you into the pubs. So I texted Tony Ferns. He used to run Battle of the Axe at the Halfpenny. I don't think it's around anymore. But he basically was you're too young. We could know you can't get into the pub, so I can't book you. I was all right, I'll wait till I'm 18. Then it was Culture Night, and he was doing an event. I don't know where the gig was, but he was doing it in a centre somewhere in Dublin. My mum drove me there. About 60 people in the audience. Wow. And so that's how I was able to get around that loophole of
being young,
and being able to gig. So then it was a good opportunity, and thanked them for it. And then the second time was with him again, then the third and the fourth, and then from there I kind of started to break out to other places. But it was fun.
Kamira, you mentioned something which I have to ask you about. How did a 2-week holiday to Nigeria turn into 2 years in boarding school in Nigeria?
Thing is, this
sounds like you were sent to prison.
Yeah, that's what I always
What
say.
did you do?
Yeah, that's why whenever people are like, "Oh, have you ever been to that?" I'm always like, "Yeah, I served 2 seasons." That's like, yeah, what's it called? It, like, what happened to me is kind of like it's almost like a Nigerian folk tale, like a myth. Like, there's always, if you talk to a Nigerian, they'll always talk about that one person who, what happened to me. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, I know someone who went to Nigeria for 2 weeks and stayed for 2 years." And then I'll be like, "Oh yeah, that happened to me." And they'd be like, "Oh shit, like, I've heard of it happening to people, but you're the first person I've actually ever seen it happen to." I think it was more, I don't think my parents planned it that way, because we packed for 2 weeks. Like, we didn't bring all our clothes with us. Like, there was some stuff that I was like, "Oh, I'm only gone for 2 weeks, I'm just going to leave them back home." We still had our place in Dunshaughlin. We just moved. I remember, like, 2 months in, I was like, "When are we going home?" Because it was over the summer. I was just like, "When are we going home?" And I'll never forget, I saw my mom holding the return ticket. She just threw it in the bin. And that's when I was like, "Oh, it's over."
But what was their justification for staying?
I think they just wanted me to get more in tune with the culture. And my dad lives in Nigeria, so he wanted us over. He still lives there now. He just wanted us over more. And then people always feel so sorry for me when I say it. But to be honest, I think it was the best thing that could have happened to me. In that sometimes since I had everything taken away, you kind of realize what you're taking for granted. Like, you wouldn't, like, even the thing that I missed the most when I was in Nigeria was just the library. Like, just having a quiet place to go and write. And like, even the library in Dunshaughlin, if you walk in there and say, "Oh, do you know a tall guy with black glasses?" they're going to be like, "Oh yeah, Shaun, the comedian." Because I'm in there. I'm literally in there all the time. Like, they'll make jokes here. Like, I'm always in there all the time, always writing material and stuff like that. So like, the library was the thing I missed the most, just being able to work on stuff. So like, even with comedy, like, that's why I try my best, because I remember when I didn't have any opportunity to do, and there are a lot of people in Nigeria probably the same, who don't have any real creative, like, avenues to go down. So that's why, like, I try to focus as much on stand-up now as possible.
What does like a day in the life kind of look like? You're an up and coming comedian. You seem really dedicated, in the sense that you obviously have a real respect for the art and how it is an art and the writing that goes into it. So percentage wise, how much do you enjoy the writing aspect of it, and how much do you enjoy performing it?
I'd say that the ratio is like maybe 60-40 in favor of writing. Like, when I started, I wanted to just write for other comedians. I didn't want to perform myself. I just liked the writing, creative aspect of it. But I figured that no one's going to let a 17-year-old write for them just because he claims to be funny. Like, they're going to have to see me do it. So when I started performing, it wasn't even I wanted to start performing. I was like, "Oh, if I can show people that my jokes are funny, maybe they'll let me write for them." And even the first time I didn't like performing. Second time, the gig went well, but I still didn't really like performing. It was only the third time that I clicked, and I was like, I'm actually just keep on performing and writing as well. But I do like I get like, doing stand up, you kind of get a high from doing it, but I get a higher high from writing good jokes than I would performing a good set, if you get me.
But is the high when you write something and you're like, "I'm excited about this," is it because you know you're going to perform it? Is it you're going to see this land? Like, or do you know what I mean? Like, is the high of writing connected to the high of performing?
I'd say it's separate. I think the high of writing would be it'd be more of a, "I can't believe I did that." Like, it'd be more like, "Oh, this is really, really great." But that high kind of usually in 2 days' time, if I read it back, I'll be like, this isn't as great as what I thought when I originally wrote it. But I think with stand-up, you have to just believe that you're funny, because it's so easy to write something, 2 days later, read it back and be like, "Oh, this is not that funny," and never do it. But you kind of have to believe, "Oh, this is funny," or not even believe, but like, let the crowd tell you what's funny and what's not funny.
I have an image of your mother standing in the kitchen and all of a sudden hearing you in your room laughing your head off like this one's going to be so good, and your mum is like, what is he doing? You know?
Yeah, my mum is like, I'm actually I am lucky that I have supportive parents. Like my mum is she's actually coming to a couple of my shows next week,
Right.
so she's
For
quite
the first
supportive.
time?
Pardon?
For the first time?
She's actually went to my first show, and she went when I started off. She would go to almost all my shows, but she kept on giving me advice. She'd be like, "Oh, you need to loosen up on stage," you know. And I'd read all the like articles of how to get better, and they're like, "Oh, that comes with time." So I'd be like, "Mom, that comes with time. That comes with time." Every gig she'd be like, loosen up, loosen up. So I was like, she'd be like, you're too scientific with the jokes and all. So I was like, you know what, you're banned. I properly banned her from all my gigs. And then I think about a year later, I was doing a gig in Galway, and she came down to see me. And then she saw me on stage, and she was like, oh, you have loosened up. And I was like, I told you, you know, that's why you're banned. Like, but that's how stand-up is. Like, even like if you saw me 2 months ago, I was a different stand-up from when I was. Now, when she sees me next week, it's going to be a bit nerve-wracking because before I didn't really curse on stage. But now I will try. I don't even curse at home. Like, I was raised just not to curse. I have younger brothers. So now, like, before I go, I'm going to be like, here, Mom. You know,
Yeah.
I might get a bit risque on stage. But I'm sure she won't mind, hopefully. You know.
What type of jokes do you talk about? Are you a clean comic? Well, obviously not anymore, cursing, but did you used to be a clean comic? Have you evolved into observational? Are you a storyteller? What type of...
I'd say I'm more observant. Like, I just try to talk about my life and things that I've only really kind of started finding my style in the last couple of months. And I'd say it's just more talking about my life, you know, things that have happened to me, and trying to say in a funny way. I try to write as clean as possible. I wouldn't have too many curse words, or I wouldn't talk about too many vulgar things. I added like risky material to my set just last week, and it didn't work out. So it's not for me. No, it's not for me. So I'm just gonna try to keep it as clean as possible. Like right now, I'm still in like the stage of like you asked me earlier on if I'd want to be a full-time comic. Like right now, the way I see these next like 2 years is me finding out what type of comic I'm gonna be. Like what's the best thing for me to do. So like that's why I need to do as many gigs as possible, because the crowd kind of tells you what they want to see from you, if you get me. So that's right now it's just to like figure out what type of stand-up I can be.
And you said you were doing a gig in the Sugar Club the other night, last night.
Yeah.
What do you gain from watching other comics perform? And do they give you any support and advice on what your next step is? Especially, you're quite young. You're 22. Like, how are they supportive of your career too?
I love watching like older comedians, like learning, picking. I'll always ask. I've asked a couple people on the scene, like what. I even just on Friday asked them a comedian, Becky Chiato. Asked her what she thinks I could do to get better. I've asked John Spillane, another great comedian, what they think I can do to get better. So if I see an older comedian and they watch my set, I will ask about what advice can you give me. I also watch comedians who aren't as good, just to see what they're doing wrong. Because like sometimes you don't see your own flaws, especially when I'm on stage and like the heat of the moment. But when you see someone who's not as good making a mistake, you have to think to yourself, oh, do I do that? Like, is there anything I can do to be better? So like every day my goal is just to be better. If there's any flaws I have, so like last night I did a lot of crowd work where I just like talked to the crowd, and in the Sugar Club the mic is wireless, so I left the stage, I just walked into the audience and picked on people who were doing whatever. But this time last year I wasn't able to do crowd work at all. It was even like when I started stand-up, I was like, I'm never going to be that guy who can go off material because I'm not spontaneous like that. Like, but I was like, you know what, crowd work's a weakness. The only way to work on the weakness is to do as much as possible. So I started doing crowd work at the Halfpenny actually for the first time. I did like 3 minutes and I was so happy with that. I was like, yes, I was able to like talk with jokes that I didn't know were going to be funny for 3 minutes. But now I'm doing it for like 10 minutes. So like I also do try to look at progress, because it's so easy to think, oh, I'm not that good, especially after a bad gig. Be like, oh, I'm not that good, like, you know. But like, I try to see where I was last year to be like, oh, you're actually making some progress, especially with stand-up. It's kind of small by small, so you know, it's good when you can see the progress happening.
You seem quite resilient to a lot of problems, but have you ever kind of been like, no, actually, I think I'm going to step away from it. I don't think this is for me. Maybe after a bad gig, or maybe you've never had a bad gig.
I've definitely had bad gigs. I've definitely had bad gigs. Yeah, I've definitely had a lot of bad gigs. With I think it's I think with stand-up, the thing is you have so many people who are like Dave Chappelle, Kevin Hart, all those bigger comedians, and if you follow stand-up a lot, you'll hear them talk about their own gigs. Like Dave Chappelle did a gig in the Apollo Theatre when he was younger, brought all of his friends, all of his family, got booed off stage. He talks about it in an interview. Over 1,000 people in the audience booed him off stage. So it's almost like if that guy's the greatest comedian in the world, according to some people right now, and he got booed off stage and came back, you know, why can't I? Like, that's the worst thing that can happen to you.
Yeah.
So if I have a bad gig, why would I want to quit? You know, if you kind of like, I always see bombing. I actually think it's one of the best things in stand-up because it really separates who wants to do it from who doesn't want to. Because the worst thing
who's coming back.
Exactly. Because the worst thing that can happen is like a bomb is painful. Like there's sometimes I bombed and I'm like, I'm gonna have to call out sick in work. Like I'm actually not be able to go to work because like, and even if you see me in work, I'll just, because I work at McDonald's, I'll just be like putting the nuggets in. I won't talk to anybody. I'll just have my head down. You know, just if anyone calls my name, I'll be like, oh shit, maybe they were at the show. Like I'll be a bit paranoid. But like a bomb it's also good. Like I think it's good for humbling acts because, you know, stand-up, it's very easy to get into your head and think you're great. You know, you're going out every night. You're making people laugh. People come up to you after the show, oh, you're great. So people can get an ego from it. But a bomb, you know, especially since you can be a good comic and still bomb, there's no guarantee that like, not every night's going to be a good night. So a bomb is a good way to set you back down and be like, here, there's still work to be done. You know, you're not the best. So like, I wouldn't really bombing, and I almost kind of look forward to them in that I know it's going to happen. I usually don't go 6 gigs while a bomb. Like after about 6, I'm like, it's coming. It has to be coming soon. So I wouldn't say I would really quit, but yeah, I don't think so. Yeah.
Ross obviously mentioned that you I think to bomb first place in the first place and then come back. First of all, you need to know that you want to do comedy. That's true. Second of all, as you mentioned already, you do need resilience. Like it's very clear. How has it been growing up in Ireland for you as a black man? Have you built resilience? Has that come from that background, or is that something innate to you? How has that experience been for you?
Growing up black in Ireland, to be honest, it was okay. Like I guess I wouldn't say it really made an impact on my stand-up per se, because even though I grew up in Ireland, my household was still very, very Nigerian based, and my mum raised me like I was in Nigeria anyway, so like I still so I never really had many problems growing up, or like some people talk about racism. I haven't really experienced that many racist incidents.
That's great.
You know, and even when I do, I would even be able to tell you about them because it'll mostly just be like maybe someone looks at you dirty and I'll be like, all right, buddy, and I'll walk away. Like I wouldn't really be something that would bother me at all, really. So for stand-up, I think the only reason that bombing wouldn't bother me is because I'd say living in Nigeria has more of an effect on my career than living in Ireland, because when I was in Nigeria, you know, you see like my dad was pretty well off, so I still had like a pretty comfortable life, but you get to see people with real problems.
Yeah.
So for me, like people are always like, oh, if you have a bad show, how do you come back? When you see like people with actual problems, me wanting to go on stage and having a bad gig and coming back, like I wanted to do that. Like it's my choice to go on that stage. If it goes bad, it's my choice. I can stop doing stand-up today if I wanted, but there are some people in bad situations who can't just change those situations. So even if I have a bad gig, like I wouldn't really see it as a problem, because I know I've seen people with real problems. So it'll just be like more of a wanting the gig.
To be honest, you're 22, and to have that kind of mentality is really impressive and inspirational, to be perfectly honest. Like I first of all, I wish I had that kind of mentality when I was 22. I think I kind of relatively did, but you see a lot of people, and they could it would really help them to have a mentality like you have. First of all, to be like I think you're imposing your own set of categories. Working as a comedian, you're your own boss. So you said that, it took me a year to improve my crowd work, but you obviously sat down and decided, I need to work on my crowd work. This is like, there's little boxes. It's like as a teacher, we'd have like an observation. So it's almost like you have to do the observations of yourself.
Yeah.
And you have categories of, I don't know, maybe crowd work, your first 5 minutes, whatever it might be, and you're analyzing each of them and trying to improve them.
Yeah.
And that's all well and good if you're like an engineer or you're a teacher, where that's imposed on you. But you've obviously said, no, this is my set of, I don't know if you'd write it down, but it might be in your head, of things that you need to improve.
Yeah, like even if someone says something to me, like what the best thing that anyone in stand-up actually has said to me is Fabi D. We did a gig at last year in Galway, and after he pulled me over and he was like, oh, your jokes are good, you're good, but you need to, like, with stand-up you kind of play a character on stage, and very much when I started, even earlier this year, it would take me a while to get into that character when I'm on stage. I wouldn't just go straight in. So he was like, you need to go on stage and already be in character and be right. So that was something that always stayed in my mind, because I was like, you know what, he's right. So like what I do now is I'll just call for applause and be like, yo, go crazy, make noise, no noise. And that allows me to go into character. Even when I was gigging with him last night, he runs on stage and he starts dancing and all that. Like, it's good to just see like that kind of that's why I always love when people have like criticism with kind of like, because that's the only way you can grow, really. Yeah. Like, if you know, like, there's some people with stand-up, they get criticism and they like kind of blow it off, and I could see why, because when you do stand-up, like, a lot of people do well. So for someone to be like, you were good, but I didn't really like that bit, you can be like, nah, but everyone was laughing, so what's the problem? But like, I think for me, I feel like, especially on the Irish scene, the goal should be to be getting better at stand-up instead of trying to, I don't know other reasons why people would do it. I always think that it's always to get better, because I don't know how much money, I don't know how sustainable a career you can have in comedy just in Ireland. Like, my goal is to get as good as possible here, so I can go to London or America and try to make money there. It would be, criticism is always good, I think.
You're going to London soon.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit more what's happening?
I'm going to London next Sunday for the Museum of Comedy semi-finals. It's a big competition. It's over 300 acts. Yeah, over 300 acts. So they're now down to the semi-finals is like the final 80. And it's very, very, like, that's what I've been doing. Yeah,
that's brilliant.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. Yeah, so that
we're in the presence of greatness here, Ross. We'll be reposting this one in a couple of years.
In a couple of weeks when he wins it.
It's going to be a tough one, to be honest, because what's it called? So when the competition, I actually really like doing competitions, because it's a very, very good, especially in London. This has been probably one of my favorite competitions to do, is competition. Stand-up styles are very, very different in England and Ireland. And then when I went to do the first, they had a heat, a quarterfinals, now the semi-finals, then the finals. When I did the heat, it wasn't too hard for me to get through. Like, you could kind of see with the competitors, you could tell who knew what they were getting into, and then the newer acts were like kind of like, oh, people are actually very, very prepared for this, and they weren't as prepared. So it was easy enough to get through the quarterfinals. The quarterfinals was about a month ago. And that was when I kind of learned how much more work I still have to do. Because the first guy went on, I was on second. And he had joke after joke after joke. I don't even know if he did setups. In like 5 minutes, he had to have told like 60 jokes. And my style at the time wasn't as fast paced. So I went on. And in the first 2 minutes, I was like, oh, I'm not going to get through in this competition. I don't think I've hit it, especially if the first guy got that many laughs. And I got a couple big laughs, and I was okay with that. But I was like, oh, I'm not going to get through. And every act that went on in that first half, same thing. Joke, like straight up, fast paced, fun, laugh. So I was like, oh, I'm not going to get through. And they picked the winners on the night. And I didn't get through on the night. But one of the judges, they do like a wild card situation. So they picked the best people who didn't go through to get through to the semi-finals. And one of the judges whispered in my ear, he was like, oh, keep an eye on your emails. But I thought he was just being nice. But then they did wild card me into the semi-finals for next week. So I've been doing I don't know if you've seen on my Instagram, I've been doing a lot of gigs this last like 2 weeks, and that's me trying to tighten it up so that's joke so that I can just be competitive with them. So I'm looking forward to the semi-finals, because if the quarterfinals were that tough, the semi-finals are going to be an even different, higher caliber, and it's going to be very high caliber in the sense that a lot of the acts I am competing with, I live in Ireland, but I've heard of them, and I know that they're doing big things. So it's going to be a very, very interesting to see. I'm sure I'm the only one there that they don't know, because these guys are all like the high class of comedy. They're all like doing the same like high spots, and I'm just some kid from Ireland. They're just going to be like, what's going on here? But I'm looking forward to it just to learn.
That's brilliant.
Just to learn and see what I can do there.
Did you have a different set between the heat and the quarterfinals? Or did you have a majority of the same set, but maybe a few different changes?
Did I have the same? It was
Is it a 5 minute set you were doing?
Yeah, it was 5 minutes. 5 minutes throughout.
Okay.
I did. Yeah. It was a different. Yeah, I did a different set. I did newer material for the. If I did the material I did in the heat in the quarterfinals, I would not have gone through to the semifinals at all. There's no. It wouldn't have been even a question, and even. So the set I'm doing on Sunday is going to be different to the set I did it's still the same bits, but I've taken out all the filler. So now it's just punchline to make it as jokey as possible. And then I'm still working on it. So I'm hoping to get some gigs tonight, hoping to get a gig tomorrow, hoping to get a gig Wednesday. I have gigs for Thursday and Friday, and then I'm flying in Saturday for the competition on Sunday. So hopefully I can put in. I don't know how well I'm good. I don't think I'm gonna get through, but I just want to be competitive, because like I want it to be like the quarterfinals where I knew there was a high chance I wasn't gonna get through. I want to at least be able to be like, oh, there's a chance I might be able to get through tonight. So
Are there many other Irish comedians involved in that final?
Rob Moriarty, he's a great comedian as well. I was going to ask you, we were talking about circle sessions earlier on, and I was going to ask you if you'd seen him there, because I know he did circle sessions are good, but he's a great comedian. He started in Ireland and moved to Berlin to do comedy, and I never really knew there was a Berlin scene, but I was doing comedy a couple months ago at the International Comedy Club at the International Bar, and a comedian called Mike Rice was also amazing. We did a gig together, and I went on, and it was the Late Show, and I don't know if you've ever been to a late show at a comedy club. Rowdy, like crazy, crowded. It's people who are already way too drunk, and they're like, oh, there's comedy, let's go in. So it's very hard to control them.
Heckler friendly.
Yeah, very, very loud. So I went on stage, and I couldn't control the crowd at all. Like, there are people running to go toilet, people shouting for their friends, people at the bar shouting to the crowd, oh, what drink do you want? Like, I couldn't do anything. So I was destroyed. And then I saw Mike Rice go on, and he blitzed it, like he destroyed it. So I was like asking, after the show, I was talking to him, I wanted to ask him like, oh, how did you do it? And his advice was, he was saying, I think all young comics should go to Berlin, because Berlin actually has a massive English speaking comedy scene to the point where you can do up to 20 gigs a week. Wow. So like the recommendation for young comedians is go Berlin for 6 months, do 20 gigs a week, get a lot better than go to London or wherever you want to go to pursue fully. So I was supposed to be in Berlin right now. When I lost the quarterfinals, because they don't give you the wild card for a week, I was looking to move to Berlin straight away. So I wanted to be in Berlin by now. Then they gave me the semi-finals, and I was like, oh, I'm going to have to put Berlin on notes. So I'm still planning on moving early next year for a couple months for comedy.
Why do you think Ireland isn't big enough for you to make a sustainable life of comedy here?
I would say the biggest problem is I think RTE isn't holding up its side of things and giving people opportunities. And one show I always heard of is Republic of Telly. If you guys have heard of it.
Yeah.
And I know a good few comedians who were on. I didn't watch the show. I've heard comedians talk about it. I've looked up. I've seen comedians, like a lot of the big comedians now were on it, and now they're all doing tours and selling out, and they're the headliners now. But there's not really that opportunity for up and coming comedians to have that same level of not even to like do a successful show, but even to fail. Like, I think that failing, you can learn a lot from that. So if I get a show in RT 3 weeks from, say, next year, that show is not only for me, but almost for the whole comedy scene, because if that show goes and it fails, no comedian is getting another opportunity for a while. So I feel like RT needs to do its part to like kind of, and also if you fail, you kind of learn from what you fail. The comedians kind of talk to each other, so they'll be like, oh, this is what I did wrong. Oh, this producer wasn't helping me. Talk to the producer more. But they're not giving Irish comedians a chance to do that. So I think RT, if they give the odd opportunity, but it's not enough where you would want to risk it. While in London, you can get a lot of, there's Channel 4, ITV, BBC, you can get even the online stuff, there's a lot more opportunities there rather than here. So
I mean, historically, Ireland would have had a Republic of Telly, the panel,
panels
these would have been great TV shows, but they were edgy, and they were a risk that they had to take. I think at the moment RT just doesn't want to take that risk, or they're going for, and there's nothing wrong with it, but there's an element of just making sure that it's PC enough that everybody will watch it. And I'm not saying that it has to be anti-PC or has to be like fuck that, fuck this, but it needs to be risky enough to laugh, because if comedy isn't risky enough, you're not really hitting the mark, in my opinion. Like the that jester type character is the person who said the thing that shouldn't have been said, but was free from getting in trouble. And I think RT is just trying to police that a little bit and just be a little bit too friendly and not enough bite that people are going to actually continue to watch it every week.
Yeah, and I think that's also a problem. The internet kind of leads into that as well, because if they say some edgy said, there might be an uproar, but everyone takes things differently. So people might be mad, but people might love the show for that reason. So you can't really appeal to people who don't like it for being edgy, because you're gonna have people who like. So even if you did an edgy show, a safe show, let there be something for everyone. But that's the only reason. I think that with the online stuff, though, with more people doing online comedy, that it's gonna get better eventually. But I think that's the big, because there are a lot of acts right now in the Irish scene who are amazing comedians who can do stand up. They can hold a crowd. Any gig they do, they can smash. But since they haven't been given a platform on RTE, they should be doing. I think they should be doing like tours around Ireland. But because they haven't been given that TV platform, they can't do it. Like even something as small as being on like the late show. I think like a small interview, and doing a 5-minute set, that can go a very, very long way, in terms of building an audience.
Even sticking something. I enjoyed the Tommy Tiernan show now myself, because it's kind of freewheeling. He's talking to people he's never met before. He's trying to get a good conversation out of them. But I'm feeling like something like an 11 o'clock comedy show for that. You have people, 6 or 4 or 5 different comedy sets, 40 minutes, you have a 20-minute advert throughout the whole thing. That could be something that, at least, if you don't like it one week, and then you could have a voting thing, there's elements to it. But RT are afraid to put that.
Well, there's a disconnect, I think, because, first of all, not that many young people watch RT anymore, or even watch TV. There is a certain percentage of people, but I don't know if it's for that reason or what it is there doesn't seem to be, as you say, you look back to the Gay Byrne days of the RT show, right? Or the Late Late Show. Now I can't imagine he was super into Boyzone or anything like that, but they made a big debut on I think he actually kind of laughed at them as well, and it's a hilarious performance to watch. But they were still given the platform to be there, and he, you know, interviewed them, like they did a performance, he interviewed them, and they went on to become obviously very famous. I don't see, not necessarily Ryan Tuberty or whoever picks the acts, giving a young group, whether it's a musician or a comedian or whatever, that same platform anymore. And I don't know if that's because they're like, no young people watch this show, so why would we give them the opportunity? Or if it's because we're just not going to make the effort and we're not bothered.
I think that would have been the cheap, like giving a stand-up comedian 10 minutes is the cheapest thing you can do. Literally, they don't require anything else but a mic. You know, unless you're David O'Doherty or if you're Alex Horn in the horn section, you're not going to need that much space to be a comedian.
That's why that's why there's so many Netflix specials. Like there's a Netflix special, new Netflix special every week because it's so cheap to film. Like it's not that much money. Especially, I feel like the stand-up scene in Ireland is it's almost ready for a big break like that because you have the online comedians who are doing their thing. So if you have a show and you have a stand-up comedian who might not have the biggest online following but has been going 10 years, very, very good, an online comedian who has the followers so people come to watch, and a newer act doing 5 minutes, that's a good enough.
Like, I mean, RTE, this doesn't want to be bashing RTE all of a sudden, but because it's all right, but the biggest celebrity Ireland has produced in years is Jacksepticeye. He's a YouTuber has probably one of the highest followings. Like he was part of the whole revolution with PewDiePie and stuff like that. Never been interviewed. He's never been interviewed on RTE. He is the most well-known.
Does he maybe doesn't want to be interviewed though?
Do you know, like maybe he doesn't want to be interviewed, but
you're right. He probably not. Yeah.
You know how approached was he that he's just like, you know, we want to promote you and YouTube. RTE would get millions of hits. You know, put them on their social media channels and kind of drum up some sort of new business, associate themselves with the online community. But they're getting rid of Ireland's Fittest Family. They're getting rid of Ultimate Hell Week. They're just cutting at the moment, and it's crazy.
It's kind of a catch-22 for them though, like promoting something on YouTube, because that's taking you know, they want people tuning into there.
BBC do it, Channel 4 do it, ITV do it. It's revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. You should be leaning into it, but I don't think whoever's making the decisions there very clearly seems to be only against it. Like Ireland's Fittest Family started 10 years ago. I think you said it's the last year of it now. I think the prize money 10 years ago is still the same. It was like 15 grand. It just goes to show like that they don't have an increase of revenue there at all. If not, actually it's decreasing.
But when you why don't you just sell Donnybrook and feck off into the middle of the country? You know, it's like, look at that prime land down South Dublin that they're just making so that they
sell Donnybrook. Put it all in a special for Shaun here, and he's gonna bring RTE into the 21st century.
Why not?
I get behind that, man. I get behind that.
I know, that's funny.
Do you get nervous?
Doing stand-up?
Yeah.
Not really, to be honest. I don't really. I get more excited. I'd be excited to do, and I feel like for stand-up, there's always, even the most nervous thing I think that can make you nervous in stand-up is maybe if you're on maybe fifth and the first 4 comics have gone on and no one's laughing. That can be a thing where like you almost, but I feel like to do stand-up you always have to have that belief of, oh, they didn't laugh at them but I'm the one. Like you kind of have to have that in the back of your mind. But I'm nervous. I'll get nervous if no one's laughing. So if I'm in the first 30 seconds you can kind of tell if an audience likes you or not. And if they haven't laughed in the first 30 seconds and I'm doing 10 minutes, I'd be like, oh boy, this might be a long one. So that would be, I'd only be nervous if it's not going well. But I wouldn't really be nervous to go on stage. You know.
Where are your favourite places to do comedy in Ireland?
Oh, my favourite places. Shinee is a really fun spot that I've been doing a lot, and it always gets a great crowd in there. I love doing that place. I love doing the International Comedy Club at the International Bar, because it's a place where either I have the best gig of my career or the absolute worst. Like that place, is the only place where I've bombed and I've been like, I might have to take a break from that. Like this might not be for me. Like I can do like 4 gigs that week and it goes great, but one bad gig in the international can have you like reevaluating your life. Like it's that serious. So that's like one of my favorite places to gig. That place, I'd say Whelan's is also fun. Like I do like doing there. I also like the Halfpenny. I like the Halfpenny because it gets a very, very international audience. So like when I was talking about learning how to do crowd work, I started there, and that's a place where if I'm going there, I'll be excited to do crowd work because you can talk there. People who've just come in from like all over the place. They've been in Ireland for like 2 hours.
They want to talk.
Yeah, exactly. And you can talk to them and just be like, and you can learn about their culture and make jokes. So like that's another fun place. But yeah, those be my favorite places to gig.
In Whelan's, is that Cherry Comedy?
Yeah, Cherry on the Monday. Yeah, that's a fun spot.
I actually, I performed your first ever Cherry comedy night. It used to be called Pop the Cherry, and it was held in DCU. In the upstairs of DCU. They did one night. They did 2 nights there, and then they moved into Whelan's. So I have the honour of performing the original night.
That's awesome. It's funny because I always see those early lineups, and I'm always like, I wonder where all these people went.
I'm here not doing it anymore.
That's funny.
Great. Shaun, thanks so much for doing this. It's been a real pleasure chatting to you.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for having me. Like it was great fun. Like, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, cool. We'll hopefully see you on the 7th of December. We'll give more details. Ross, as always, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for listening. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Done.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks.
That was brilliant.
You're a good talker.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You could do this for a living.